Hey, we are back with another video, man. Now today we gonna be reacting to the difference between Black American culture and everywhere else. Curious to know what's gonna go on. This is Zuby. I don't know who Zuby is. He got a big following though, so I'm interested in what he gonna say. Cause like everybody got their own opinions about Black culture, and in the African diaspora, Africa, different places. I really think that some places are more connected to Africa than we are. I think we got the most. I think African Americans got the most disconnection from the continent. But I also think that's why Black Panther did so well, because it was a reminder to us of what we've longed to understand about ourselves. Like, we were stripped of that when we were brought to this country. So, and the developing over the years, it's been taken more and more away. So, just we need an understanding, you know. So like, let me see what they say, the differences between Black culture and everywhere else. Let's see. Anyways, y'all know what to do. Subscribe, turn on post notifications, and let's get it. Let's go.
There are some of the differences between Black American culture and your experience as an African man living through Europe and the Middle East and stuff.
Wow. I think that's a tricky one, because I think a lot of what is the way Black Americans or even Black American culture is portrayed through the media, whether that's modern day TV or music and so on, I don't think it's an accurate representation of the typical actual Black American person. I think there are certain stereotypes and ways of making Black men and Black women come across, which, yes, there are people who are like that, but they're not really sharing the whole picture. They're not showing the, they're not showing the average family-oriented person who's just, going to work and not being a degenerate in any type of way. And I think a lot of the degeneracy gets promoted and pushed, and that's not unique to Black people. It is across the spectrum, but I think that through various mechanisms, there are certain portrayals of Black Americans in particular which get pushed through the media, not just here in the USA, by the way, but internationally, and it sort of fortifies certain stereotypes, which I think oftentimes are not, number one, are not accurate. I think it's an imbalanced representation, but also not exactly wholesome or positive. And I think there's, over the past few decades, it seems like there's been a move, intentionally or not, or maybe both, to reinforce certain negative stereotypes. And I know that most Americans don't leave the USA and don't travel, and perhaps do not see how those images and views are getting ingrained around the world.
Right, like African.
Right? So what he just said. Oh my God, that was beautiful. The furthest I've been out of the country is to Canada, right? I've been to Hawaii too, but that's still America. But like, I've been to Canada, right? And what I noticed when I was up there is that even though like they're still part of the African diaspora too, there is a difference between how some of those blacks act up there and how we act here. But the differences aren't that, they're not that different. It's just language barriers. Like I went up to Montreal. Montreal, they speak French, so it's like it's the language part of it, but they have the same kind of nuances and connotations that we have here in Africa, and as Black Americans, right? And what I think is really, really extremely interesting, right, is what he just said is 1000% right. The stereotypes that they put out there in the media or allow to become famous in the media is not the majority of Black families in America. It's just not. Like, it's just not. And I noticed that when I meet anybody who immigrates to this country, that's the first thing they're thinking about is the stereotype. Even the people who live here, they think that most Black people are those stereotypes, and it's just not true. But well, he said that was well said, and I would love to travel to other places. Like, every time I talk to my friend, a friend of mine, I want to say his name on here, I don't know if he wants me to, but a friend of mine, he goes to Ghana, and it just sounds so beautiful when he goes to Ghana. I really want to travel and see what that's like. I want to see what it's like on the continent of Africa. I want to go home one day and just see what it's like. But let's keep going.
Blacks are different than American blacks.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are Caribbean, we're mixed.
Yeah.
But Jamaicans, Haitians, Caribbean black people are different in many ways, values and culture. I dare I say they take themselves more seriously than American blacks. How much would you say rap music has impacted American black culture, and of course, the world, because we export our media in a positive way,
Yeah.
but then also in a negative way?
I kind of think that he just answered that question. He answered that question. There's stereotypes, and those stereotypes have affected how people think of the community, but it doesn't change the entirety of how the community is. The community's different. But I do agree with them. Caribbean people do take themselves way more seriously. They take their culture way more seriously. I'm noticing it now. Like it's so complicated to be from a culture where it's like I'm not gonna say we don't take ourselves seriously, but marriage, I'll give marriage as an example. Marriage is not a big deal to a lot of Americans, period. But in the Caribbean islands, it's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. And divorce is just something that they really don't do, and they shame people for that. But here, it's like, okay, you get divorced, it happens. Relationships fall apart, But they do take themselves way more seriously, and I respect that about them. I do. I respect that about them. They have something, especially Haitians, have something to be proud about. They have something to be proud about. The fact that they were the first people to free themselves from tyranny and oppression. So, yeah.
It's hard, man. It's a complicated question because I'm very aware that we're talking about tens and in some instances hundreds of millions of people. So, there's about 40 million or so Black Americans in the USA. That's a nation's worth of people, a pretty large nation's worth of people. So I'm somewhat hesitant to, I'm very much an individualist on many levels, so I don't like to make broad statements of like, oh, okay, Black Americans are like this, or this is the conception around the world, because it's too big a group, and with so much diversity and different types of people in it, that just like I wouldn't do the same with, Asian Americans or white Americans or Jewish Americans. It's such a big group. But I think that in terms of rap culture, it's simultaneously a reflection and also something that does shape culture and perception. So it's both. It's kind of this chicken and the egg thing, right? Does art influence life? Does life influence art? And I think it's both. It's both, right? If you look at hip hop, whether you're looking at gangster rap and the stuff that's more in that vein, or if you're looking at stuff that's just more even what people might have called conscious hip hop, or stuff that's more political. You talked about Public Enemy and so on. It's simultaneously a reflection. There's a level of narrative and reporting to it of like, look, this is what's going on in the street, this is what's happening in the community, this is what's going on in Brooklyn, this is what's happening in LA, this is what's happening down south in Texas or whatever. So there's some element which is a reflection of the way those individuals and people in those communities have grown up and the things that they've experienced and been through. But then there's also the power of hip-hop to shape culture. One of the most powerful things about hip-hop and rap music is it's one of the things that is globally, around the world, it's considered pretty much the epitome of cool, right? Rap and hip-hop can make stuff cool. Rappers are considered cool, they're considered ahead of the game. Young people especially gravitate towards anything that they consider cool. And with that, it does have a lot of powerful influence, which can be either positive or negative, because I think something incredibly important if you think about different cultures is, what does a culture or a community consider cool? And I think that whatever is considered cool, you're going to get more young people emulating that. So if you look at a community where the cool thing is to have a family and to be well educated and to be a law-abiding citizen and to be responsible and so on, if that's what's considered cool and aspirational, naturally you're going to get more young people emulating that and gravitating towards it. If on the flip side you took a community and the things that are considered cool are doing drugs or selling drugs or having a criminal record, or going to prison is considered cooler than going to university, or having 5 children from 5 different women is considered cooler than having 5 children from one woman, and so on, then you're going to get more people emulating that behavior. Again, especially young people who are most likely to be influenced. So I know that there are millions and millions of people who fall into different categories on this, on all sides of the spectrum and across different races and ethnicities and nationalities and so on. But I think the real power of hip-hop, beyond the messaging, is its ability to shape and influence what is considered cool. And I think anyone who's a fan of hip-hop actually knows how influential it can be, right? If you're a teenager and you're a rap fan, it's going to influence the way you dress, maybe the way you speak, the slang that you're using. It doesn't mean that you're going to go and imitate and mimic every single thing that you're hearing a rapper say on record, but I would absolutely be lying if I said that hip-hop didn't have, like, of course hip-hop had a massive influence on me.
Would you say that...
That this is why I want to travel. People who travel have that type of perception. They're not, okay, if you just live in America, what I've noticed about everybody I've seen that have like traveled the world or been to other places, if you just live in America, you can only see the perspective from being an American. You can't see it from anywhere else. And normally when you, like, for example, I'll give you a really good example. The woman I'm talking to is Haitian, right? She's Haitian. And Haitian people do things completely different than we do it. But it's an eye-opener, because here's the thing that's positive. Haitians are really big about family, community, things like that. They stick together, like, you know what I mean? They fight amongst each other. They have their problems, definitely, and I know Haitians would argue me on that. But they definitely stick together as family and community. They're about the community. They commune with each other. We have that here too. It's just different. Like it's just different. Like we're big on family and community too. However, though, we're more quick to say somebody on the outside can be considered family, right? I think African Americans are more quick to be like, okay, you could be considered family, even if you're not really family. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but you notice that when you travel, you notice like, okay, these people believe in their family, stick to their family, and they're like, boom, you could come in and be family, but you're not this family, and you don't rise above my family. Definitely, they have a core belief in family. But that, even going further, we'll talk about the hip hop thing. Again, like anytime somebody talks about hip hop, I'm nervous when people start talking about hip hop, because I don't think people peel back the entire layer of it. Hip hop didn't come to be out of nowhere. It exists because people who are subjugated to something specifically in their environment that they're in. It's an expression of the environment. Does it have a negative effect? Absolutely. But does it have a positive effect too that we're not looking at? Yes. We're seeing how some people live and seeing how we can change how those people live. Seeing the perceptions from them and realizing like, hey, a 14-year-old child should not be shot and murdered. That's crazy. A 14-year-old kid, to lose your life between 14 and 18 is crazy. It's crazy. But let's keep going.
American culture, Americans in general, would be more virtuous with or without rap? Wow.
I want to answer that question first. No. Rap. Yes and no. Like, no, because rap wouldn't exist if it wasn't for what we've been subjected to. I keep saying they because I'm trying to talk outside of myself because I'm thinking about Haitians, but rap wouldn't exist if we hadn't been subjected to what we've been subjected. So the expression of what's going on, the only way it wouldn't exist is if the entire community started doing better. And what I mean is, like, most of us aren't born into poverty anymore. So you could say yes and no to it. You can say yes and no. That's actually a really good question. Like, really it is.
I honestly do not know.
And I don't just say rap, but I'm talking, most pop music.
Pop music
most
in general.
cool music.
This is the thing, because it does reflect society. This music is not coming out of It's not coming out of nowhere. And people are generally choosing what they listen to. People choose what they can consume, right?
Is that so? I mean,
I do think so. I
grew up in a time where we listened to whatever was on the radio. And so we were kind of molded to believe what was cool based on what they would pump into our brains.
That's true, and I think that is more true of the past than now. I think that now most people are very much choosing what they listen to, whether it's on Spotify or it's on Apple Music or iTunes. People are very much curating their own playlists. They're searching for what they want. They're seeking out. It's not just the radio and the nightclubs pushing stuff on you. So I think there's a responsibility on all sides of it. Right? I think it's interesting. I get asked as a rapper, I get a lot of people asking me things like, do you think rappers are a positive or a negative role models? Or do you think that, why do rappers make music with so much profanity? Or why do they rap about these topics and so on? And I think those are interesting questions. I think a more interesting question is, why do so many people like it? Right? A lot of it is consumer driven.
If I would interject there with why most people like it, I think it's because of our fallen nature. There's a propensity towards sin. So anything that's sensual, sexy, that gives me a sense of liberation, makes me feel pride, will always sink to that lowest tier. Yeah. That's in our nature.
I think it's because of what he just said, actually, in reverse. I think that the Christianity, religious dogma, the many things like that, this is why people are so attracted to people who flex their ambiguity. Like, I think that literally it's had a foot on society's neck for so many centuries. It's limited homosexuals, it's limited women, it limited blacks. I mean, because some you can see that some Baptists, people who believe in Baptists, think that the Bible was meant to be a racist thing and that blacks were meant to be enslaved and they were cursed by Ham. They literally believe this. You know what I'm saying? So the Bible has had its foot on the Bible, the Quran, the many religious texts, and there's no disrespect to anybody who believes in it, but it's had its foot on society for so long, and so many people don't meet up to those criteria. The book even tells you, like, you can't meet to those criteria. You are born of sin, and the only way you get out of sin is through sanctification through Jesus Christ. But at the same time, though, you still are sinful, and you can't do it without him. So it's like that conversation to some people is like, okay, well then, when you meet somebody who's like, I don't give a damn about any of that. I'm who I am. I'm going to be who I am. You kind of enjoy the presence of somebody who flaunts their differences. Like, people want to see differences in society. Somebody who makes this statement that he just made, no disrespect to him. I like this podcast. It's really good. But somebody makes a statement that he makes, people are kind of looking at him like, oh, yeah, you're one of them. That's how people think of it. Like, you're one of them. But let's keep going.
I agree with you. And I think it's interesting to recognize it because it makes us turn that focus back inwards, right? As critical as I can be of certain rappers and their lyrics and the messaging they're putting out there and so on, I would be a hypocrite if I said, oh, I don't listen to any gangster rap or I don't listen to any DJ.
I mean, it makes you feel powerful. I grew up listening to Biggie and Tupac and Nas, like you said before, some of the older stuff, but it gives you this sense of pride.
Yes.
I mean, that's the main thing. I remember listening to rap music, especially if I want to get pumped up for a football game or something. It makes me feel powerful.
It's powerful
to listen to this music.
And I think how you channel that is I think it's extraordinarily important. I think that can be channeled in a very negative way. It can also be channeled in a very positive way. So I know for myself, I mean, I find when I'm listening to even some of these same artists, the message I'm getting from it or what I'm taking away from it is, when it filters through my lens, it's primarily positive, right? Because number one, I'm from a very solid family, thank God, and I was raised well with certain decency and morals. There's no movie, there's no song, there's no video game that's going to make me go out there and do something heinous. Or like, I don't even cuss, right? Like, I can listen to cussing all day. It won't even make me.
You mentioned a blessing that you have, which you came from a solid family.
Yes.
Would you say that rap music has fostered an environment in our culture where it has been detrimental to the family?
No, I think no. I think that came long before that ever came in, and I think it came from what we were subjected to in this country. I don't think that's what I think. I think that, and I think he may say that, the other guy, because the other guy is very intelligent. He's well read.
I'll be honest. I think if so, I think it's very much pales in comparison to many other factors out there. I think that it's look. I recognize that music has the power to alter people's emotions and feelings and to motivate and inspire people in different ways. I'm an artist who makes music that's focused on positivity and uplifting people and trying to inspire and motivate people and put certain messages out there. And I know for a fact that that has an effect on people. I've met people, I've had people tell me that song of yours, or that thing you said, that performance you did, it had this effect on me in a positive way. So logically, if it's possible for music to impact people in a positive way, obviously it can impact people in a negative way. I'd be being dishonest if I said, oh no, that's not possible. Something like the breakdown of family, fatherlessness and so on, divorce rates, all these other things that have been, honestly, I think is probably the biggest problem in this entire country. Do I think that rap music is even in the top 5, top 10 causes of that or sources? No, not at all. I don't think so. But could it possibly have some detrimental effect, especially on younger people if they're not raised well? Yeah, possibly. And it depends on the artist as well, because even if we're saying rap and hip hop, I think we're talking about a specific part of it.
Pop culture.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's rap, but it's all the music. Punk rock music, all this music that, in my opinion, is degenerate and derogatory and destroys us from the inside out. It's a cultural war when it really boils down to it. People are going to make choices on who they vote for and what they choose to do, but it's really been an attack on our soul. And you can't argue. I mean, even the word music comes from musing, right? Like, so speaking into the soul, hearing from it's spiritual.
With Little Spoon,
Yeah, I really like the other guy. I do. I like this guy too, but I like the other guy because the other guy he studied this. He has. You can tell he studied this. He wanted to understand why when he traveled to all these different places that he had a different perception of each thing, and you got that from him, and that was beautiful. Everything he said was beautiful. Like if you don't notice, like when I beat him to the question, he answered the question the exact same way I answered it. I see this like it's so much more, and I'm not. And trust me, this is not me just blaming white people. I don't want to do that. But when a group of people are subjected to something, you have to take into consideration how they got subjected to it, why they got subjected to it. And I'll go even as far as to say, like, it's starting in Africa, being sold into slavery, being sold to the whites for transatlantic slave trade, but coming over here and being subjected to Jim Crow and not being welcomed back into society. Had whites have welcomed, I've heard a white person tell me this, had they welcomed us into society the way we should have been, I don't know if rap music would have even existed. To be honest, like, I think we would have been in such a better place. We would have had different things to talk about. Yeah, that's it, man. Subscribe, turn, but that was a good video. Like, that was really good. I'm gonna like it. I like that video. That was really good. And I'm out.